Welcome to the Too Busy to Eat show. I'm Greg Zuffelato, the host of this show. Today we have Sean Cannell on the show. He is a video superstar. His videos, he's a YouTube expert, video expert. He has built a brand, amazing brand, that his videos have been seen over 30 million times. So his audience is pretty vast. He started this business and built this business starting with he had a full-time job doing it on the side. And he's really found tremendous success with working hard, trying to balance everything as he's, with a marriage and work and being an entrepreneur, all these things. And he's done an amazing job. His content on YouTube and anywhere else where else you find it is the best I've seen. I mean, he teaches about video better than anybody I've ever seen. So his story is great. Before we get to him, just a reminder, I'd love for you to comment, to subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're on a podcast, I'd love a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Check out the show. If you really like it, please do any of those. All right, let's get to Sean. Well, welcome, Sean. I am so fired up to have you on the Too Busy to Eat show. So thanks for coming on.
Greg, super pumped to be here and excited to be on the show.
Yes. And like I mentioned, I have video envy because you are the video guy and your video looks so much better than mine.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I've been doing this a long time. And so, this is an expensive camera. And so you kind of get what you pay for. You
should be looking good, right? Yeah. That's good. I mean, it's really impressive of what you've done. You've kind of just exploded. You've taken a portion of online marketing and in every capacity, you've just kind of blown it out of the water and you've produced so much content for people, but and great resources. But you didn't start at the top, you started somewhere. So why don't you give us a little background of where, what got you into the video and what kind of took you along your path?
Yeah, I actually started, you're right, not at the top. I started just from scratch. In fact, I started from a small town an hour north of Seattle, Washington. It's called actually Arlington, was where I grew up.
Okay.
And not a lot of people know about this place. And it was definitely the country. I actually lived on a farm. We had goats and horses. And so It wasn't really like a media video. It wasn't Hollywood. It wasn't LA. And I was actually volunteering at a small church in the area. And the youth pastor handed me a video camera and some editing software. And he said, hey, start making video announcements. And Greg, I hope that you or nobody in your audience ever sees those because they were terrible. But it's kind of encouraging because,
Absolutely.
Our first pieces of content are never our best pieces of content. But
Right.
I started making videos. And what I love about that season was I was doing weekly video announcements for my youth ministry. 2003, this is before YouTube even started. It didn't start until 2005. So I kind of got this head start creating video. Eventually the senior pastor was like, these videos are getting a little bit better. Let's do them on Sunday as well. So now I'm doing 2 videos a week, 104 videos a year and some extras before social media, like before this time where people are like, man, I got to produce all these content. I got to produce shows. I got to write blog posts. So I was really learning that skill set. And actually the first YouTube channel that I ever managed was my church's, and we started in 2007. So I was uploading videos, titles, thumbnails, and I'm just learning along the way. I've never got a formal education, but I've just learned in the trenches. I've invested in courses and just spent a lot of time doing it. Eventually started a media business in 2009, doing like videos for small companies and whatnot. And then fast forward to today, now I'm kind of more in that personal brand space, passionate about helping people build their influence, income, and impact with online video and YouTube.
And you are doing that well because you have a big audience. You have a big crowd that follows you. I was looking at, these numbers could be even old, but your videos have over 9 million views. That's a small country has viewed your stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think across all of our YouTube channels now, we're over 600,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And I think actually that's something like 30 million views or something. But sometimes those numbers could get so intimidating because, again, you do something long enough, momentum builds.
Sure. Right.
Slow at the beginning, but then momentum really does pick up over time. And it's been a blessing to be able to really impact so many people.
Right. Right. So that's a good lead into what really what's your driving force behind what you do and why you're, out there? I know you're making it's a business and you're making money, but you're helping so many people. What drives you?
Yeah, I think that one of my driving forces, a big one, is actually just my God-given potential. And I think that potential is something that I think a lot of people that are maybe listening right now, and I think if we really think about it, we were created with just so much, we have creativity, we have different gifts, different skill sets. But when I just personally think about the creativity, the energy, just the body I've been given, the strength I've been given, I'm really driven by just maximizing it. I want to live it. I wasn't ever really much of an athlete, but I remember back in football in high school, they would say, like, leave it all on the field. Like don't, if you gave halfway, especially if you lost,
right.
Then you can look back and be like, man, what if I tried harder? But at least if you left it all on the field and you gave it your all to the best of your ability and then left the results up to whatever happened. And I feel that that's something we should think about in life. And that's definitely what drives me. I want to leave it all on the field for the time I have on this planet. I want to make the biggest impact possible when it comes to, business and wealth, but also family, relationships, fitness, all these, my faith, all these different areas, and just maximize my potential to the best of my ability.
I love that answer, and it resonates with me. And it's funny. I was on a podcast last night, and I had a similar answer saying that, what drives you? I'm like, what drives me to do so much and, be busy all the time is like sitting idle doesn't help anybody. Like, it's like, get out there and make the most. God has blessed you with certain things. Why not use them? And I love that. It really resonates with me. Now, so you are in so many different areas. I know it's video, but you have a lot of things you're doing. How do you like manage it all? And first in like the time sense, like your demand on your time, you're being pulled different directions. How do you manage that time to get the most out of your day and weeks?
Yeah. I mean, we could go a lot of directions. I think, even sometimes before time management, actually comes really priorities and vision.
Right.
So I think number one, I think it's having really a clear vision. And over the years, that helps me decide what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. Because in this modern age, man, we are living in such a massive age of opportunity, especially because of the internet, because of social media, because of online video. We can now reach the world, low cost tools. It's now most people's smartphones. You can reach the world with video, with audio,
right.
The internet connecting you across the world with no cost of mailing or having to pay for a TV spot, or, it is so changed. There's so much opportunity. But one of the things that a lot of us are living with is kind of opportunity overload.
Yes.
Somebody we see a Facebook ad that we could be building our influence on Instagram, but then we also could be doing drop shipping or e-commerce, or we could be, starting a YouTube channel. So I think that I think experimenting and trying these different opportunities is important, but at some point you really have to have a clear vision. And I like to say, you can do anything. Actually, I really believe that, but you can't do everything.
You can't do all. Right.
And so before managing my time, I think it's trying to be really crystal clear on what the priorities are, and then starting to plug those into, our calendar and things like that. And the other thing though, and then if we go back into manage your time, I think how do you be so productive or get so much stuff done is by working a lot.
Right.
One thing I would love to say too, sometimes I put out there, and in my space, those who know me may consider me someone that's pretty productive, but I always like to also paint a couple of things around there. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, what season of life are you in? I've been married for 12 years now, but we still don't have kids.
Okay.
And my wife and I are very aligned in our vision, and our relationship is strong with, how much time we spend together or whatnot, but she's fully behind how much time I put into, say, like work or effort or these types of things. So I think that knowing what season you're in, I'm in a season where I can put a ton of effort in. Right. Even before, I had a full-time job and client work and freelancing, and I was trying to build my brand on the side. And so for me, I realized one time I heard about 888, and that adds up to 24. And that was, well, you're going to sleep for 8. You should. Okay. Some people need more or less, but if you, around there, and you got to work for 8,
sure.
But what are you going to do with the other 8? And so that was back when if I had to work for that other 8, then I realized I had this other 8 to work on my side projects, to work freelancing. But now when I do this all in on my own brand, now it's like that's 16. And we have a good balance. I mean, definitely fitness and health and time off and rest. But I think people have more time than they realize, but you do have to manage it. You got to dominate it. You got to organize it. And so those are a few things that really help get a lot of what we're doing done.
And do you have specific, I know prioritizing is huge. Do you have specific tactics to handling all that you do? Like routines or tactics that help you accomplish what you have accomplished?
Yeah, I think strategic planning, and it's not as much a tactic, it's actually a lifestyle, is one of the most important things ever. And so, but how does that break down tactically? Well, number one, and this is something I've done for a while. One of my mentors, Chalene Johnson, also took this to another level, and she's incredibly productive. I think about everything her and Brett Johnson do and their team. But one of the things that they said recently is they spend 2 full days, Greg, now 2 full days a month just planning.
Wow.
And so what I've learned and I've really modeled that is that actually what sometimes people are in such frantic mode. There's putting out fires, they're putting things, just panicking, trying to get all these tasks done instead of slowing down to actually look at the bigger picture. And we've probably all heard that prior planning prevents poor performance. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah, right. And so I probably spend a lot more time in strategic planning. And this would include a couple things. It includes actually just thinking, evaluating the opportunities, mulling over them, journaling a little bit, thinking about, all right, there's a speaking opportunity, but if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Yep. Yeah. It looks a lot of foresight and planning ahead. It's kind of like, this is analogy I like, is if you were going to build like a jungle gym for your kids in the backyard. And if you thought, you're like, all right, I have a kind of an idea for it, but if you didn't write it down and plan it out, you might be like, I need some boards, I need some nails and a slide. Yeah. And so then you go to the store, you buy the stuff, you start building, you get a little ways down, and then you're like, you know what though? Shoot, I also need the railing. So you drive back to the store. Well, now it's 2 trips. You're losing some efficiency. Then you get back, you're building it more. And then you're like, shoot, I forgot the ropes for the bridge. Then you have to go back to the store. Then you realize you didn't have a drill. Then you realize you didn't charge the battery for the drill. There is so much lost in the majority of individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners. I would call it inefficiency because of a lack of foresight and planning. So one of the reasons I think we get so much done is really sitting down and mapping out the schedule, putting the blocks into the schedule, the things that are prioritized, making sure, what gets scheduled gets done. And we use Google Calendar for our team now. And I have a passion planner right in front of me. And so nice. I'm still, it gives me like, here's the visual colors. And now this, by the way, this one goes from August into all the way through 2018. So I started going into the next year a little bit. And I think those are the kinds of things. So I think spending a lot more time in strategic planning, then there's less surprises. Yes. There's less stress. And then also blocking in margin, realizing you can always change stuff. You can always cancel it. Yeah. But if you plan it up front, then you can get quite a bit more done. That is fantastic. And I've heard that before. I would have to be embarrassed to say I don't do that enough. That's that planning ahead, it makes the world of difference. And I mean, you're an example of that. But and Greg, let me give you another one too, because I'm super passionate about this. The other one is batching tasks. And what we actually teach when we're teaching online video is we actually teach batching videos. It illustrates this same point. And this is, if someone wants to start a YouTube channel for their business, their brand, they might think, I think you should upload a video a week. That'd be the minimum. You should start a weekly show. Right. So here's what happens for a lot of people though. If they're going to shoot a show, they think, okay, well, set up some lights and take a shower that day and think about what you're going to wear, plan out your script, turn the camera on, go through this whole process, hit record and shoot a show, and then try to get it edited and put it out that week. And so that's a good idea. You'd get a show done. But what we teach is you should actually at least shoot, if you can, like 4 in one setting, a batch of videos. Right. And this applies to every area of life. How can you batch tasks? When you look ahead, you might realize like, okay, well, I need a last minute trip, or a couple weeks from now, I need to go to Seattle. Well, what else? What other biz dev things could I stack on that trip? What other things could we accomplish on that trip? And instead of reacting and being there and being like, man, we could have got all this stuff done, but I didn't make the call. I didn't schedule the meeting. But when you take 2 days a month is what Shalene's doing on full days, not actually executing, just on planning, calendaring things out. But you get all these opportunities where you can plug them in and really maximize every shoot day, every trip to Home Depot, every trip to the grocery store. Instead of going and being like, shoot, I forgot the milk. Not only could you get the milk and everything else because you planned ahead, made a list, but then you also remember that, you need to get your oil change on that trip. Right, so maybe you drop your car off at the oil change, Uber to the grocery store. I don't know. You could just, as long as you take more upfront strategic planning, it can like 10x, 100x your productivity.
And it's funny. It's even with daily individual tasks as you're doing the multitasking thing, where you are doing one thing and it takes you to another thing. Well, now it's going to take you several minutes to get back into that first thing. So by really batching and focusing on one thing at a time and planning it out, you're so much more productive than trying to handle multiple things at once.
I agree with you. I think they call that task residue, that they're in your brain. There's actually residue from the last task when you switch tasks all the time. And so you're right, because if you're in shooting mode, well, then you can be fully present on camera, share the content. Also, when you're in batching content of shopping mode for maybe office supplies, well, just do it all in one day. Like it might be an epic day, but you just bang it all out. Do all the shopping for the month. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, batching is life-changing for sure.
That is fantastic. Now, with you have a large audience. We're talking about 30 million views. Now, those are sometimes there are people watching multiple videos, but how do you manage that? So you have an audience that watch your videos. You have people that are in your programs. The community around what you do is vast. How do you handle and manage that?
Yeah, it's a couple questions. I think, again, it goes back to these conversations can definitely happen in season. So for some people, they're in their solopreneur season. Right. And I remember being there. I think one thing you got to do is you always just do your best. Yeah. So if you start growing online, at some point, you can't answer every email. You can't answer every comment. You can't answer every tweet. If you can, you should, meaning in those early stages, that's some of the most important things to do at the genesis of a business, a brand, and a podcast, to engage, because you're building those first raving fans, those first 1,000 true fans. So how did I manage it? I mean, I would be on Twitter. I will have worked all day, and then I would have spent 30 minutes at night replying to tweets or replying to YouTube comments, doing as much as I could myself. But the next season that is absolutely critical is team. Yeah. And so by these days, our team has been growing about, 4 people that work pretty focused, and then contractors on top of that. Right. And it's still too much. Like even we have Facebook inbound on our fan page. I have all these email addresses. You build them up over the year, your website email address, this email, all this email inbound, Twitter inbound, Instagram direct messages. It's a lot. Yes. And I think I heard this from Gary Vaynerchuk, though, who's a well-known social media influencer, and he had 1 million followers on Twitter, so much larger audience than me. This was years ago, right? But I remember a couple of things that happened. Was one of his things he was known for was like he never delegated his Twitter account, and I remember getting a reply from him on saying something on Twitter, and I was like, "What? It's kind of like a hero or celebrity. Early on, you're like, I can't believe he replied to me." Now, what he would teach, and I heard him talk about this after the fact, was that, it's not like I can do that for everybody. Right. But he said intent matters, meaning an effort matters. Yeah. So what people can see, in fact, in the faith space, there's an author named Andy Stanley, who's also a pastor. Yeah. He says this, he says, do for one what you wish you could do for all. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes when we see these big numbers on social media, we just get overwhelmed and we stop doing anything. Right. It's just too much. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can't answer 100 people's questions, we'll answer 5. Right. And a couple things happen is that also word spreads. I mean, reputation builds. Right. And word can get around, whereas eventually someone in conversation will be like, they might say, I don't know, I've reached out to him a bunch of times at a conference or something. They'll be like, they might be like, actually replied to me and he replied to me and he replied to me. Word gets around. So intent and effort, I think, is kind of the canvas that you want to have when there's just too much to do. Right. That's excellent. And I think that's the heart of
And as you got into it, wanting to help people, yeah, you want to connect to them too, to the best degree you can. And that's a fantastic approach. And now you mentioned a little bit about fitness. How does fitness and or nutrition play in your life with your productivity in your business and how well you function?
So, Greg, that's a great question. Now it plays a huge part, but actually, if we backtrack a bit, it's something that regrettably I neglected in my 20s.
Okay.
And so early 20s, I'd kind of come out being pretty athletic towards my later teen years and even early 20s. But right about 21, right about the time I'm getting married, sometimes they say that's what happens, right? You get married and then you just give up, right? Like, I don't know. And you get busy and you get all these other obligations. And so throughout my 20s, early on, I had the advantage of some metabolism and, just being young. But especially like towards my later 20s, I was working a lot and doing other things, but I really neglected my fitness and I put on a little bit of weight, but more than that, my cardiovascular, my energy, it just really started to go down. And sometimes I feel like one of the reasons to do fitness is it's maybe not even necessarily that your end results are different, although I do think they are, but even just your mindset in the process, foggy mind, fatigue. It's a grind. You feel like you're not thriving. You're just surviving. And my later 20s were probably more like that. But now in the last couple of years, I have really been getting into running. I'm about to run my first half marathon in a couple weeks, Rock and Roll Las Vegas. And so there's been a lot of change. Now, one advantage I did have is I've always ate pretty well. Okay. But then lately I've geeked. Probably people might call me extreme, and I'm sure people in this audience would, I'm into kind of the biohacking thing or whatever. Yes. So most mornings are like bulletproof coffee, a lot of green juice. These days, as far as fitness hacks or whatever, and really it's an energy thing. I heard this quote and I really believe it, that nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels.
Right. Yeah.
And I just, at times, I don't want to give up my mental clarity, my energy, my productivity. So I prioritize those things in the way I eat. But the other thing is, I also think, I think that extremes can be harmful. So here's kind of what I would do. A lot of bulletproof coffee, not a lot, start the morning off, green juice, hydration has been a huge thing. And then also eating lean throughout the day, and actually not very much, almost like intermittent fasting. And some days it might just be liquids and like bulletproof coffee until 12, 1, 2. That's kind of an intermittent fasting deal. And then, but when it's time to maybe wind down for the evening, that's when you have a little more fun with food, right? Or whatever, because you're going to maybe go into that digestion kind of food coma vibe, but you're okay with that. So I think it has a lot to do with being intentional. I remember when I worked, kind of at an organization, and there was the lunch break, and everyone would want to go out to lunch, and we'd go to lunch. Now, this was a lack of a self-discipline issue, but I wasn't putting, I'd go out and then I would order that big burger or big sandwich and a lot of carbs. And then what would happen? Afternoon crash, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's been also observing those things. And so it has massively boosted my productivity to be lean, to be smart when it comes to nutrition. And I get into things like red juice is some, a lot of B12 and some red juice that I'm mixing with water. And just kombucha, probiotics, like these types of things. So
so those are, you're hitting on some very key things in nutrition and exercise. So that's great. But that is, as you said, that has helped you perform better, do more, produce more.
100%. And here's actually something that also my mentor, Chalene Johnson, told me was, and this is what I missed in my 20s, is she says, fitness development leads to personal development, which leads to business development. And this isn't to say, so someone might say, well, I don't do anything with my fitness, but I read books, and I figure out how to grow my company, and we're crushing it in business. And my pushback would be, I'm sure you are, but I imagine how much more you would be if you got your fitness right. And that's kind of what I can relate to. I was pretty productive in my late 20s and very obsessed with personal development, still reading and, going to conferences or whatever, but that fitness piece wasn't there. And I would say there's been there has been a direct correlation to the 10x, like the explosive growth in our business and our brand over the last 3 years. And the fact that in the last 3 years, that fitness development piece is now in order.
Right.
And it's affecting those other two. And it's just kind of like those two could be on fire. That fitness development piece is like a giant bucket of gasoline poured on what's like kind of already happening there. So fitness is a major fuel for entrepreneurs. And here's the other thing that's interesting about that is like, I also am really not too extreme about it. I don't have a ton of ambitions to, pose or get sponsored or like be a fitness influencer. I kind of like what Tim Ferriss talks about. He popularized the concept talking about the minimal effective dose.
Okay. Right.
And that was like, well, yeah, sure, you could work out for 3 hours a day, but who can, and sometimes so that it doesn't have to consume your whole life to just get that area in order. And so even when this half marathon's coming out, that's a big deal, but I'm not going to run it that fast. I mean, we're probably going to do 10, 11-minute miles, but it's still a big deal.
Yeah, and you're going to make it. Yeah,
exactly. And it is, and just running alone has completely transformed my physiology, my psychology. And so just even making some effort, sometimes small tweaks can lead to giant peaks, and just installing a few fitness practices in your life can have big results.
Yeah. I love that, fitness to personal to business. That's a great thing to keep in mind on its importance. Absolutely. So what would be, there's a guy out there, backward 15 years, somebody that wants to, somebody has a full-time job, they're busy, but they want to dive into, maybe it is YouTube videos, or maybe it is online business. But they're really stretched thin now. What's one piece of advice you could give them to get started, at least in the direction of their goals?
I think the first piece of advice I would give, if that was the case, is to actually pull out a piece of paper.
Okay.
And to begin, one of the biggest reasons why we sometimes get overwhelmed. We also get anxious when we are confused, when we lack clarity, and when there's no plan. Right. And so what we're overwhelmed. We're like, because if there's 10 things swirling around in our mind, the reason they're causing this anxiety is because they are swirling around in our mind. As soon as we transfer those to paper, we can de-stress and just begin to think clearer, begin to map things out. Could be mind mapping. And this could go, it doesn't actually have to be paper, but I think journaling or something. So what I would tell that person is to really take some time to think about, start with the end in mind. What is it that they would like to start with? Or where would they like to end up? And so is it just to make some side income? Is that the goal? Or maybe it's not. Is it to actually build a brand and become like a guru or an influencer, an author or a speaker or something, or a personal brand online? Is it to, so to think about that, then to also maybe jot down, these are different things you could think. What are your time assets right now? I mean, maybe some people actually, Greg, could be, I'd say not most, but some people actually could be being unrealistic. They might feel like they have no time. They might actually have no time.
Right.
I mean, if you've got like 6 kids running around and you got to work 60 hours in your salary position. And so you might have to just think, okay, let me continue to journal and dream and move towards a season where I can change this reality. But then the other thing you might find is even just begin to track your day on paper, map your day on paper, and look for that 1 hour, look for that 30 minutes, look for those 2 hours. If you want to build that side hustle, find how much time you have and then defend it, protect it. Because then what you may find is, I actually bet that most people, I'm sure even I could, most of us could still probably find an hour a day. Right. Probably could find it, especially if you really found a good reason why, and if your life depended on it, of course you could find it. Maybe even more, maybe only 30 minutes. But if you've got that, what I think people fail to realize is, again, we want overnight results. It's a microwave generation. We want things to happen instantly. And 30 minutes is not going to get much done. But 30 minutes every day for 5 years could build an empire. Yes, that's right. I think it was Tony Robbins that said most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And so sometimes things are blowing up for our brand right now and things are happening. Well, Think Media, my main YouTube channel, it started in 2010. Right. So even though it was very slow because it was a side hustle, some weeks I didn't work on it at all.
Right.
Some weeks I worked on it a lot. I had time off. Some weeks I just worked on it an hour.
Yeah.
But all of that was why I was working on my dream job while I had a day job. And little by little, a little became a lot. And it also kind of got us to a tipping point where people were like, my gosh, overnight success. And I was like, absolutely. Overnight success takes 10 years, but this is the moment you're seeing it, right?
Isn't that funny?
And all of those seeds were planted. So that's what I'd recommend. I mean, trying, hopefully answering your question, is that, really get on paper, really get, planning, and just evaluate how much time do you have? What gaps in your schedule do you have? And then fill those in to work on that dream job or project that you want to work on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's next for you? What's going on? You have a lot going on. Is there something big coming up? Is there's something that's in the near future?
First quarter of 2018, we have a book coming out.
Oh gosh.
And so one of our projects, Video Influencers, is 50-50 with a business partner of mine, Benji Travis. So we co-authored a book. It's called YouTube Secrets.
Okay.
And that's exciting. And then we're going to spend a lot of time on that. Besides that, we're putting out, a lot of training, a lot of free resources online, a lot of videos. And so I would say that probably more than anything, I am a content creator and YouTuber. So we have the day-to-day putting out videos, planning content, shooting content. We're working with brands. We have brands like Cannell or Western Digital that we're working with. That's exciting. And that's very new too. This is kind of just something that's kind of happening right now. So a lot of exciting things are happening. And then I think just continuing to also do this other side. Again, it's not just about finances. It's not just about, friends, but also fitness. So I want to keep leveling up. Half marathon's about to happen. So thinking about some 2018 goals, whether that's also not just prioritizing, like we said, business, but what are the experiences? Right. What's the travel? What do we want to do with family? And building those things in as well.
And you'll be spending time planning that all out. And I know you already have, but you'll be spending time getting it down and dialing that in. That's great.
Yep. 100%.
Now, if somebody wanted to, and I know people wanted to connect with you or just connect with the things you're doing, follow along, check out your book, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, a couple great resources. The first one is Think Media. And so if you just type the words Think Media in YouTube search, that channel is all about the best tips and tools for building your influence with online video. So if people, whether it's even like Facebook Live or Instagram, taking pictures or creating video content for all these different platforms, and you're stuck on what camera should I get, what microphone should I get, what lighting, that channel is really focused on that. Yeah. Our channel, Video Influencers, if you go to YouTube, just type that in. First word video, second word influencers, plural. That's a weekly interview show for people that are crushing it with video. So, I would say for those listening that not just because it's the thing that I'm passionate about and that I teach and help people with, but, Mark Zuckerberg said that by 2019, 90%, the majority of Facebook is going to be video. Cisco did a study that said the majority of the internet is going to be video by 2019. And so Social Media Examiner discovered that video is people's preferred content format of choice. So I would almost say that there isn't really a person who should not be leveraging online video to grow their own brand, even if you're just an employee, whatever. Video is a big deal. And that's who we serve, helping people with video. So that's on Video Influencers. And then the last thing is we do have a training. YouTube in particularly is a very powerful platform. And we have just like a great training for people at Tube Masterclass, TUBE masterclass.com. It's like an hour-long free training, breaks down how to crush it on YouTube if anyone's interested.
And I have been, stalking you online, and I've been watching your videos. I mean, obviously the quality is good, but the content you provide is it's amazing. I mean, you're providing for free. I mean, I know there's paid things too, but the stuff that you're providing that I was going through, I'm like, man, you are giving real solid content for people just coming by your channel. It's awesome. It's so great.
Well, I appreciate that, Greg. That's definitely my heart. And we want to help people. And we really believe that it's impossible to give too much. No one, I think Helen Keller said, no one ever became poor by giving. And so we do have a huge philosophy. We like to say that a lot of our free content is better than a lot of people's paid content. And that's just kind of the goal. Want to add as much value. And I think we just know that, again, number one, I guess here's the thing, Greg, it's working.
Yes.
What I mean is we're okay. Yeah. And we just know, and I think it's working. It's working because I think that's the way the world works. When people are, generosity wins, value wins. Not generosity or not adding value can win in the short term.
Right.
You can trick people for a while, but we're definitely interested in building legacy and brand over the long haul. And on the internet, I think that's important. There's a lot of people on the internet that sometimes you're like, I don't know if what this person's about. We're hoping to just let people know that that's what it is all about. We really want people to get results, and we know that if we get wins, results, value for people, then our business will be fine.
Yes. And it is fine because you're making a huge impact. But Sean, I can't thank you enough for taking the time in your busy schedule to be with us today. So I wish you the best. I can't wait for your book to come out. I'll keep checking out your videos, but thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you, Greg. The pleasure was all mine.